Hello everyone, today I'm going to show how to make a thumbnail like this, and if you don't want to follow the tutorial, I'll leave the Photoshop document in the description, but I recommend following it just so you can learn the skills and it'll help you make thumbnails in the future. So the first thing you want to do is create a new project, go to Film and Video and select HDTV 1080p. It might show these blue lines for you, and to get rid of them, hold Ctrl or Command H. Now the first thing we want to do in the thumbnail is make the grey background. So to do that, we want to go down here in the layers panel and you see this half circle, press that, press gradient, and then click here to edit the gradient. On the left, select a dark grey, and on the right, select a slightly lighter grey. Once you do that, press OK, and then in this menu, change the angle here to around 110 degrees. And to get rid of these ugly lines, press dither so it just smooths it all out. Then press OK. The next thing we want to do is make the lines here for the graph. So to do that, we need to select the pen tool, which you can select by pressing P on your keyboard, and just draw a graph. And once you've drawn the graph, make sure to go around the side. And this just means you'll be able to edit it in future. So once you've done that, press down here, create a solid color, and set it to a green. Once you've done that, you can press the path selection tool or the letter A, and up here, set a stroke of a green. Set this to about 30 pixels, but it's very jagged on the corners, so you need to press here and change the corners to the middle one, which is round, and the caps to the middle one, which is round. And that just rounds off all the corners. You might be fine with this. To make it look a lot nicer, we can hold Ctrl or Command and press J to duplicate the layer. On this top one, remove the fill by clicking the fill there and then clicking the red line. Then on the bottom layer, do the same but with the stroke. This splits it into two layers, so on the stroke layer, you can add a drop shadow to darken the layer below it, and make sure to set the angle to 110 degrees so it stays consistent with the background. After you've done that, to add some more depth to this bottom layer, you can go over here and below the eraser, there's a gradient tool, which you can also press G to get on, and just draw down at around the same 110 degrees, and then hold Alt or Option, and then click in between the color fill layer and the gradient fill layer. Then you can adjust these sliders here to change how dark it gets. And to make it change the green instead of just going to black and white, up here in the layers panel, you'll see normal. You can change this to linear burn or color burn, just whichever one you prefer. So I'm going to pick color burn. And what we'll do next is add this grid. To add the grid, go to the website linked in the description, which is Texture Labs, and they have a lot of free to use textures. So you can go to details in the side here. And there's two grid overlays here, so I'm going to use this one, Details 176. You can just download it at the top here and drag that into Photoshop. Once you drag that into Photoshop, you can scale it up until the grid covers the entire screen. And then to get rid of the black, you can change the blending mode here to any of these five, so lighten, screen, color dodge, linear dodge, or lighting color. I'm going to pick linear dodge, so to make it less obvious, we can go over to the opacity and lower it to something like 25%, around 25 to 30%. After you've done this, you can hold Ctrl J to duplicate the layer again, turn the opacity up to 80%. Down here, next to the circle that we used to add the solid colors, there's a button to add a mask. Once you add that, you can hold Ctrl or Command and press I on the mask to invert it. Press B or just press the brush tool to get to the brush. And up here in the color panel, you can set it to white. So what this does is with the layer mask, everything that's white is what's visible. So I'm going to draw over where the lines of the graph are to just make it pop a bit more, and also just add some random spots around. Now you can see how this looks with both layers, or you can remove the layer below it. But you see here it's a bit too plain. So I'm going to lower the opacity on my brush, make it smaller, and do some lines or all over the place on the graph. That just adds a bit more depth to it. Now I'm going to put the lower layer back on and lower the opacity to around 10%. Once that's done, you have the main graph so far, and you can add some text by pressing the letter T, clicking, and then just typing whatever you want, such as how to go viral. Now the font I have here is called Montserrat. I'll also link that in the description. You can just move it to the center, make it scale up. And to get this red line behind it, go to your brush tool. And on the brush here, you can move these two dots to make it smaller. And then drag the arrow to put it on the side. Or you can use the arrow keys to move it. And then I'm going to add a solid color layer. Set it to a red. And then on the mask, hold Ctrl or Command I to invert it. Set my brush to white. Then I can just click there. Hold Shift and click at the other side. And it draws a line over it. And I'm just going to drag that below the text. And that just helps the text pop a bit more. And to make the text look a bit nicer, I'm going to double click the text layer. Add a drop shadow. Again, at 110 degrees. Then add an inner shadow on black. These are all the settings, you can copy them. And that just adds a bit more depth to it, so it's not as flat. And that's it. If you want to change the color of the text background, you can double click the solid color layer there and just drag it to whatever color you want. You can make it a darker red or a lighter red, whatever you want. To save this as a thumbnail, you can press File, Export, Quick Export as PNG, and then save where you want it exported in your files there. If you want to see any more tutorials, like and subscribe, and comment what you want to see tutorial on. I'll try and make a tutorial for all your comments, and I'll try and answer every question you have. Thanks for watching.